what is it at home? You guys are, with all the time that you have at home, and are either of you homeschooling and teaching the kids anything? I know they're very young, but are you trying to do anything like?
There's a lot of Play-Doh. A lot of Play-Doh.
In our life too,
Play-Doh,
and we don't have kids at the house, so
That's it.
So I want to hear a little bit about you guys growing up. What was your dynamic with your family growing up, and to sort of see a little bit of how that shaped you into who you are today and the drive that both of you have as entrepreneurs?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I hesitate. I think entrepreneur is an overused word, and it shouldn't be wasted on me. I would say I'm an investor, and I'm just
that's not true.
Professionally curious. But my dad was he's a hardcore military background. He was a farmer from Wisconsin. He was running his farm by the time he was 13 years old. My parents got married, little means. He just worked and worked and worked. He was the one who probably his strengths were work ethic and self-awareness. He knew, if he wanted to build a business, he may not have the education piece of it to scale a business or to take it to the next level. But as far as getting in and doing the grunt work, but he was aware and was able to find people that he could work with that had the skill sets that he didn't. So I feel like I mirror that maybe a little bit, just mask my general stupidity with people much smarter. Yeah, I mean, I played a lot. I had a full-time job by the time I was 7, and there wasn't a lot of patience from my parents for messing around, if that made sense.
And that full-time job was croquet.
Yeah, it was croquet, and that didn't work out. And then I started playing tennis. Yeah,
right.
Right. But he was up doing drills at 6 a.m. before school. You were diligent about it.
And as a 7-year-old, wow.
It was a lot. We have these ongoing jokes. She'll be like, "Did you see?" She makes fun of me because I saw The Lion King for the first time when our son watched The Lion King. I missed an entire decade of movies and stuff just because I was doing things. So she'll make fun of me because there's these pockets of life that everyone else knows that I'm just kind of unaware of.
And at 7, was it your own drive and interest as well that did you decide to wake up that early for those drills, or was it your parents?
Probably both. I mean, I don't know any 7-year-old that wants to. The tougher parts was when you get to the ages of 13, 14, 15, when you want to go out or you want to go, you start 16 years old, you have different interests. Then it becomes a little bit more of a challenge. Besides what you want to do and what you probably should do.
You were obsessed with it though.
I loved it. I think kids are the same as adults. They like being good at stuff. You kind of gravitate towards. So, maybe I didn't feel like playing all that time, but then all of a sudden you get good and you see a result, and all of a sudden you're going, oh, I think even for a kid, it makes sense. Because one of my big kind of eye-opening experiences was when I was 9 years old. My parents were pretty good about exposing me to, I got to go to the US Open when I was 9 years old. And then I got to go to a Davis Cup tie when US won against Switzerland. And that was oh my gosh, this is amazing. So maybe that was the moment where you saw live fighting. Yeah. So maybe it's an important thing to expose, kids to kind of that dream scenario as a spectator. There's maybe a parallel there. It blew my mind when I saw live tennis and people watching and atmosphere and everything else. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
On your side, when it came to modeling and acting, what was it that shaped you into that direction as a kid?
I have a totally different relationship with that journey than Andy does. I mean, mine was it's really simple and much more distilled, I think. I grew up in Matthews, North Carolina, where my mom was a critical care nurse. She's now retired. My dad was a respiratory therapist. My brother's a firefighter. My uncle's a firefighter. My grandfather's a firefighter. They are service people. You don't go into a creative industry. There's no design. There's no artistry. That's not necessarily true. But actually, my grandpa and my dad are great carpenters. But point is there's no sort of creative profession. And so growing up in Matthews, North Carolina, I never thought in a million years you could actually make a career out of being a model or an actor, because I didn't see any examples of that in my community. And I was scouted at a very young age. I was 14 and I was scouted both in a mall and by a substitute teacher of all people, suggested that I get into modeling. And at 14, you're like, okay, that sounds like fun. You know, it sounds easy and fun. And so I started locally, and then a lot of luck happened. A scout from New York was in Charlotte, North Carolina, and wanted to see some local talent. And so I met with him and I signed with him a year after I started, and I I went to New York the first time when I was 16 years old. And then I moved to New York when I was 18, and things started sort of snowballing. And then when I was actually modeling, all of my friends were in college and I didn't go. And I was really missing sort of that education, and I really wanted to be learning something, and I felt a little bored, and things weren't really going well in the modeling world. And so I started, my manager actually said, why don't you study acting? Because this was 2005 and you couldn't really be a full-time online student. And he said, why don't you study acting? It'll give you something to read at least. And so that's exactly what happened. I started studying acting, reading a lot of Tennessee Williams, and loved it, and started auditioning. And then it's that thing where I don't know if this was your experience, but when you first start, you're like, oh, I'm never going to make it. This isn't going to actually work out for me. Like, let's just throw it against the wall and see if it sticks, kind of a thing. And then all of a sudden you book that first thing and you fall in love with it. And then you book the second thing, and then you become obsessed with it. It becomes harder to book the next thing. And that's kind of what happened for me. So in a weird way, it was sort of the opposite of Andy. And I feel guilty saying so. Like, it wasn't diligence. It wasn't discipline. It wasn't passion. It was like exposure to something I had never seen before, and then a lot of luck. And then that luck sort of met with a lot of hard work. And that is sort of my career.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, you say luck, but I do think there's a lot more behind it, because you obviously had that natural energy about you that people gravitate towards. And on the acting side, I mean, you're an awesome actor. I mean, we've seen a lot of what you've done, and I think that's great. I actually don't know. I've never seen. I would love to see Andy act in something. Just saying.
Oh God,
I think that would be funny.
You would take that statement back.
I want
to add something to Brooke. She's not giving herself enough credit. She is always curious, not scared to jump in on something, even if she isn't comfortable. Right. So modeling, and this is from my view. Modeling happens. She takes it wherever it goes. Covers Sports Illustrated, then decides, I'm not doing that. I want to learn another craft. Goes into acting, does that, or starts a tech company and sells it to a publicly traded company 4 years later. You are not scared to jump into something, even if it's extremely uncomfortable. You could have stayed in the modeling world forever and done it well. And it was comfortable, but you left that and went and pursued something that maybe you did it before modeling and it was almost like unfinished business, but you will always put yourself in an uncomfortable situation until you figure it out.
But and that takes so much grit, and for you to see it through, to sell your company.
Yeah.
I think that's so